I call this meeting to order. Please stand and join me for a moment of silence in honor and memory of Fargo Police Officer Jake Wallen from St. Michael, just across the river here, and we will follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome to this evening meeting of the Sherburne County Board of Commissioners. With that, I would ask for an approval of the regular meeting proposed agenda, but we do have a few changes to the agenda. Administrator Messelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. With the Commission's permission, staff would like to remove item 2.19. It is not ready for board action, so we just remove it from the agenda completely. And staff would like to add item 6.9 regarding a requested IT position of Senior Network Specialist. That was prepared and presented to you. It's on your dais, so we request that that be added to the agenda. And then I would just note that when we get to item 6.8, it does not need to change for the agenda, but Dan will highlight one change to the item when we get there. So just note that for the record.
Okay, with those two changes, I'd be open to a motion.
So move.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Gray, seconded by Commissioner Felber. Any other questions?
One ask for clarification. What 2.19 did you say we're removing, or 4.19?
4.19.
4.19. All right. Thank you.
My error, 4.19, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying that. Any others? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Moving on to agenda item number 2, we do have a public hearing. This was scheduled a number of weeks ago, that tonight we would be hosting a public hearing to conduct a hearing for the Getaway Bar LLC public hearing and consider approval of the on-sale with Sunday liquor license. Ms. Diane Arnold.
Good evening. I was good morning, but it's good evening.
You have to, I think
Late afternoon.
you want to turn your mic on? I think your mic.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners, Madam Chairman. Yes, before you is the request for board action, and this is for the approval, and this is a public hearing for the approval of Gateway Bar, this for their approval of on-sale with Sunday liquor license. As of today, we have not received any comments, any public comments. We did do the publications in the paper as required in the Star News, or excuse me, in the Patriot, and the publication was put in there. There has not been any comments from the general public that I've received. The township has approved of this licensing, so I just wanted to let that be known to the board, and then you can open it up for the public hearing if there's any public comments.
Okay, thanks for all that, Diane. So we have notified the public adequately. We have offered the amount of time that's necessary. We've received no comments at this point. And with that, I will open the public hearing. So is there anyone here to speak on the public hearing, or for the liquor license for the Getaway Bar? Anyone online?
I do not see anybody online, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other emails that we've gotten in the last minutes? Check all the sources. Okay, anyone here to speak on the for this open public hearing? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and then move to the board action on this. So what is the wish of the board?
I would move that we approve the liquor license for the Getaway Bar.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Felber.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Halls. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion has carried.
Okay, thank you very much. And just for your information, that the pending closing is going to be next week. There's like 3 different dates that they tentatively have, but, so this will be a new ownership then taking over, which is formerly known as the KJ's Refuge, so,
Great.
thank you.
Thanks, Diane. That is in Commissioner Felber's district, correct?
Definitely is.
Yes. So great. We'll have to go visit them under the new owners. Moving on to agenda item number 3, that of our open forum. Do we have anyone signed up to speak at the public open forum?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have one person signed up.
Okay.
That would be Brett Collier of Big Lake, speaking on North Star, solar, and elections.
Okay, good evening, Brett. And just to remind the public, during the open forum piece, this is a time we allow the public to speak. They have up to 3 minutes to speak. It is not a time that we respond or dialogue. We take in the information, and then if appropriate or when appropriate, we have certain staff people maybe get back to them or a board member. So tonight, we are here to listen to Brett Collier. Good evening.
Good evening, Brett Collier, Big Lake. 3 things. First, North Star. First, in regards to my letter to the editor this last week in the Patriot, I repeated the average 55 riders per day out of the Big Lake station as reported in the Sherburne County workshop. As pointed out to me by one of our legislatures, that's only an average of 23 people per day out of the Big Lake station as they ride to the cities and back. Sherburne County, like Anoka County, needs to start withholding funds as this boondoggle has not and will never even come close to performing as touted. Pull the plug. Solar farms. I see today's agenda item 6.5 is for the approval of an interim use permit for yet another solar farm. Some of you will argue that landowners should be able to do whatever they want with their property, which, if true, we wouldn't have zoning laws. Citing pig farms and metal recycling comes to mind. Solar farms in Minnesota are the least effective in the nation. Solar in California, Arizona, New Mexico can be argued to make some sense with the potential capacity factors in the low 30s. But in Minnesota, the greatest capacity factor we could achieve is that of 22%, because we are located on the because of where we are located on the planet and our weather. Solar has become a religion for those who do not understand it, and a cash cow only for those who learn how to milk the government for subsidies, i.e. money from us taxpayers. Solar not only produces more expensive electricity the few hours of the day that it works, but it removes once productive farmland from production, causing food prices to increase. The minerals that are needed to create these solar panels come from China and other countries, mined by children and other slave labor. The proposed disposal of these limited life panels and returning the land to food production may be written on paper, but the landowners won't be around by then. So no more solar in Minnesota. It's a fool's errand. And finally, election integrity. For a number of years, us concerned citizens have been presenting issues dealing with election integrity at the Sherburne County Board and asking for public hearings. However, I feel like we've been dealing with the 3 wise monkeys. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. It's funny how Senator Amy Klobuchar and her party were putting out documentaries questioning the accuracy of Dominion and other voting machines until their party came into power. I guess the ends justifies the means, yes? How about looking into the interests of everyone in the county and not just your party and start holding public hearings regarding the potential problems with our election systems, specifically Dominion? Turning a blind eye to potential problems is not what you commissioners are elected for. Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 4, that of the consent agenda. As was noticed earlier, we have pulled agenda item number 4.19. So with that change, I would be open to a motion.
I'll make that motion to approve the consent agenda with that change of the removal of item 19.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Danielowski. Seconded by Commissioner Felber. Any other changes? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Moving on to agenda item number 5, that of announcements. Turning that over to Administrator Messelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Just a couple of brief announcements tonight. First of all, we did wrap up 2 days of budget workshops and appreciated the board's time, and staff appreciates your attention to the recommendations for 2024. Next steps will be to prepare a revised budget for you to look at in August in preparation for September, when we will hold the preliminary budget and levy discussions. Second announcement is a little bit of good news, bad news. As you know, we've been trying to secure funding for work on the Zimmerman overpass. That's on 169 and County State Aid Highway 4. The good news is that Congressman Emmer has included in his request for congressionally directed spending an additional $7 million, putting us about halfway in funding for that overpass. Bad news, a little disappointment. We were unsuccessful in the federal raise grant process and also in the state quarters of commerce process. Those were very competitive. Just to the east of us, Highway 65 got quite a bit of funding. So maybe a little jealousy as you look east here, but we do anticipate the project will proceed and we'll continue working at both the federal and state level. And then last but not least, just a note, I'll be forwarding an invitation that the commissioners have received to participate in the investiture of Catrice Ringham next week as the new court administrator at the Sherburne County Courthouse. And that's it.
Okay. Other announcements? So one announcement that I have, and Brett, thank you for reminding me of this. The Vietnam Memorial Wall is being presented, was brought in today in Monticello at Pinewood Elementary. And it'll be up and on display from July 20th to the 23rd. So if you get a chance, it's phenomenal to see. Take some time to cross the river to go over and see that Vietnam Memorial Wall. It's not in Sherburne County, but we like to support, obviously, our Vietnam vets and those that we lost in the Vietnam War. So just a little announcement there. Moving on to our regular agenda, item number 6.1, we welcome the MCIT Executive Director, Gerd Klebaugh, who's with us tonight. Thanks for finding your way up this way. And
Well, thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it. As was said, my name is Gerd Klebaugh. I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Counties Intergovernmental Trust. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with MCIT, so at risk of maybe repeating things you already know, I think you can think of MCIT as your insurer for property, casualty, workers' compensation. Although we don't call ourselves an insurer, we're a risk pool, and there's several reasons why we make that distinction. One is we're a joint powers organization, so we were created by counties in 1979 in response to difficulties in acquiring workers' compensation coverage for county employees. And so, as they say, I guess the rest is history and continues to be written. So we're a membership organization. We're really made up of members like you. We have 81 counties across the state of Minnesota and affiliated organizations, soil and water conservation districts, historical societies, lake improvement districts, for example, that make up our membership. So we're not a profit entity. We're a governmental entity. We're really focused at trying to cover our costs, and again, we're accepting the risks that you've provided to us for workers' compensation, property, and casualty coverage. So we're working to cover our costs. I think another important distinction in our work as it relates to distinguishing our work from insurance is that our board members are your peers. We have 6 county commissioners, 2 county auditors, and a county administrator on our board. And you, as members of the board, get an opportunity to cast a vote every year for our board members as they rotate through their service, and that happens in December. So again, our interests are really aligned with the county's interests and with our members' interests, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We're very fiscally sound and financially secure, and proud of that, and again, proud of the long track record that we have in serving county government in Minnesota. You have up here on the screen, and I have hard copies if anybody's interested in looking at hard copies. And I'm not going to read through this document for sure. You can certainly do that on your own, but I do want to give Bruce, for anybody who'd like one. Do want to hit a few highlights in here just to call to your attention some things you may be thinking about, and just give us a chance for a dialogue. I'll just wait a minute for those to go out.
Thank you.
I'm on page 2. It's just 4 pages, so we tried to keep it slim and to the point. So on page 2, I just want to talk a little bit about the cyber coverage. It was about this time a year ago that we were notified by our cybersecurity insurance company, Hartford Steam Boiler, that they were canceling our coverage, and they were doing that for a number of government entities and pools across the country. And I know you appreciate the importance of having strong cybersecurity services to serve your public, because they expect to get services certainly with a computer orientation. With the challenge of our board, and I think you all know Felix Schmiesing, one of your former colleagues, was our board chair and was for several years, but was last year as well. With our board's direction, our staff was able to make arrangements to put in place not only a replacement of the coverage that we had, but I think an improvement in that coverage as well. So we're pretty excited about that we were able to provide that important service back and continue that coverage, and really, as I just mentioned, provide stronger coverage than we had in the past. So that was a success. In the bottom left-hand corner of page 2, there's a gold box that talks about dividends. Every year for, I think, better than 30 years, MCIT has provided a dividend payment back to our members. We work very hard to cover our costs, but when our actuary tells us that we have dollars in our reserve in excess of what we need to take care of the run out of claims, and some of those claims that we're planning for the future, you'll appreciate are 60 to 70 years down the road. Our actuarial analyses goes 70 years forward into the future, because workers' compensation, if we have an injured employee, certainly if that employee is relatively young and lives a long time, we might be making payments to them for decades. That's our obligation to them. Our dividends, though, are a return of excess reserves to our members. Last year, 2022, the board provided $7 million refund back to all of our members, and you'll see the Sherburne County portion of that. This year, in 2023, the board is making an allocation of $4 million, and that's also from the workers' comp portion of our work. The property casualty portion of our work has been more challenged, and while we continue to be very solid financially and secure in our property and casualty coverage, like you with building infrastructure in the county, we've seen prices skyrocket. It skyrocketed in the last 3 years. Inflation's high, labor shortages, supply shortages, weather events have all contributed to that. So the board has taken a position to be conservative in providing refunds back to our members, and is keeping those resources close, just as a hedge against future claims. On page 3, there's 2 sets of graphs. One above is aggregate workers' compensation claims, and I want to talk a little bit about that graphic to begin with. So this is 5 years' worth of claims data at MCIT, and again, this first section is workers' compensation. And you'll see there that we talk about claims by frequency, which is just simply a count of claims that we receive, regardless of the amount of money that we spend. And severity calculates then the amount of money by claim. And so it's more of a total expenditure over this 5-year period, 2018 to 2022. And this analysis is by department. To give you some insight from a pool-wide standpoint, where do we see claims and how much are we spending on claims? So on the left side, by frequency, you'll see sheriff and jail operations make up a very large component of the frequency of claims that we receive, and I think that makes perfect sense. those law enforcement officers are out in the county every day interacting in high consequence situations, and as a consequence, oftentimes getting injured. By severity, you'll see that over that 5-year period, we've also paid out that for that department across all of our members the most amount of money in terms of paying claims for workers' compensation. The highway department is second in terms of frequency and severity, and again, I think that makes quite a bit of sense. They're doing very difficult jobs under very difficult circumstances at times. And then hospitals and nursing homes make up the third largest category of workers' compensation claims. The chart below that is the same type of data, but this is for property and casualty. So this is for property insurance claims, it's for liability claims of different varieties. And again, you have by frequency and by severity. So by frequency, autos are our largest category of claims. We provide insurance to 31,000 automobiles across the state of Minnesota. All those are public vehicles, so we've got a lot riding, no pun intended, on public-owned vehicles. And again, by severity, then the amounts of money that we spend on those claims are also high. Property is second, and you'll see the bar, relatively speaking, on the frequency side for property is relatively small, but quite a bit larger on the severity side. And again, I think that makes sense on its face. One building that suffers fire or weather damage could be millions of dollars to repair or replace. So the severity, the total claims amount that we paid is relatively high for the number of claims we have. We have $7.5 billion of total insured value. So that's your building here and buildings all across the state of Minnesota. And then general liability is our third area of claims. In the right bar on that page 3 is a little bit about workers' compensation and how we calculate our workers' compensation contribution. So we use something called a mod rate, which is just a rebalancing of factors in our calculation that allows us to recognize where risks are high versus where risks are low. 1.0 is the mod factor for the pool as a whole. And so if the mod rate's below 1, that means you're doing better than expected, and if it's above 1, then you're having some challenges, and your mod rate is just a hair above 1. So always opportunities for improvement. And that's a good segue actually to page 4 here. As I mentioned at the outset, we are very focused on aligning the services and the work that we do with all of our county members. It's one way that we distinguish our work from a regular insurer. Consultation services there in the upper left-hand corner of the photos there just provides a little bit of background on the fact that we've got a small field services staff that's ready and able to come out, meet with your safety committees, with your staff, and talk about risk management, loss prevention strategies, things that could be customized to the unique circumstances that you may be facing here in Sherburne County. So we're always at the ready to provide that additional support. On the upper right-hand corner is awareness and prevention. Our website is just incredibly deep with resources. We have videos, we have written materials, and you'll see in the photo in that awareness and prevention materials box, there's a white table that's there. It's a cybersecurity self-assessment. This is the one of hundreds of tools that we have available for your use. Cybersecurity is going to continue to be a challenge, even though we were able to respond to that challenge, that loss of coverage last year. There's no shortage in what the enterprising bad guys are doing to try to break into your systems, steal money, steal information. And so being very vigilant about that is very key. And this cybersecurity self-assessment is really a tool that you can use as a board, that your leadership can use to have a discussion with your IT manager, your IT staff, about how you're doing, how your systems are performing in that way. Not as a way to make you experts, but just as a way to open that dialogue so there's an opportunity to discuss opportunities for improvement and investment. The lower left-hand corner pictures training for officials and employees. We just have a variety of training programs that we provide. safety-oriented, information-oriented, best practice-oriented, both for you as elected officials, for your staff. And many of them are online now. We're doing hybrid presentations post-pandemic. So if the trip into St. Paul or St. Cloud, where we typically have those, is a bit burdensome for staff, oftentimes we'll have hybrid options so they can participate remotely as well. And then we've got some pre-videoed presentations as well. So we're here to support you. We're here to help you improve your performance in the way of all the areas of risk, and we're just pleased to be of service to Sherburne County in that way. And again, appreciate the opportunity and the time you've provided me to stop in tonight and just provide a little bit of that overview, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Garrett. We really appreciate the presentation and all the partnership that we have with you and being part of the Joint Powers. So any questions or comments from the board? Of course, when Commissioner Schmeezing was here, he was our direct line, but I know our staff is often on the phone with your staff for different things and consulting with you often. So again, really appreciate being part of this Joint Powers.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item 6.2. The next number of items, Ms. Lynn Watashik will join us from Planning and Zoning.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. These are the items,
And
excuse me.
staff. You can introduce staff that joined you in the room, that'd be great.
Mark Schneider is with me, he's the county planner. And then Dave Lucas has an item coming up next with Gabby Holman from our office as well.
Great, thank you.
These are from the Planning Commission, the June meeting. First item is Nick Christensen. Property owners are Douglas and Deborah Robertson, requesting an interim use permit for a temporary business and impound lot. This is off of Highway 10 in Big Lake Township in the Industrial Zoning District. Planning Commission recommended approval by consensus of the IUP with the 9 conditions listed in the findings of fact that are in your packet.
Okay, thank you. And what is the wish of the board?
I move that we approve it.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Felber to approve the interim use permit with the following 9 conditions and findings of fact.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Danielowski. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. The next
Next item
item?
is James and Mary Halia. They're requesting a text amendment to the Sherburne County zoning ordinance. It's section 16.2, interim use permits, subdivision 5.21 regarding solar farms, 8.3. They wanted to remove a portion of the area where you weren't allowed to have solar farms, and this was specifically on their parcel, which is PID number 10-325-3200. Planning Commission recommended denial by consensus on the request for the text amendment to the Sherburne County zoning ordinance. And there is a resolution that was in your packet with findings that references the findings of the Planning Commission.
Thanks, Lynn. And what is the wish of the board with this suggested denial?
I move that we deny the text amendment to the Sherburne County zoning ordinance via the adoption of the resolution number 071823 and based upon the findings of fact.
Motion's made by Commissioner Danielowski,
I'll second that.
seconded by Commissioner Felber. Any other questions or comments on this one?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Halls.
Yeah, I struggle with this one in a couple of ways. On the one hand, I think I've made it clear that I'm not a huge fan of the solar farms. On the other hand, I am also I also am very much in favor of a landowner being able to use their property to maximize it. My question, though, is I believe it's my understanding that the comprehensive plan is near completion. Is that correct, Bruce?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Hulls, yes, I believe we're scheduled, Mark, what, July or, September, October probably is the timeframe?
Mr. Mark Snyder.
Yes. So our hope is to hold the public hearing for it in in August at the Planning Advisory Commission. And so we're a couple months out for final approval and adoption. So we still have a couple steps to proceed forward.
And then following that, we'll be looking at the zoning ordinance as well then.
That's correct.
So I guess my hope at that point, once that's done, perhaps this could come back before the board?
I'll communicate with the attorney what the timeframe is, whether a comp plan change triggers a new timeframe or if there's a statutory limit, and we can communicate with the applicant.
Okay.
Okay, so motion has been made and seconded to deny a text amendment to the Sherburne County zoning ordinance via adoption of the resolution that is in your packet. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried.
The next item is Ziegler Monticello LLC. Property owner is Nordic Investments LLLP. They're requesting an interim use permit for a highway planned unit development for construction equipment and e-truck dealership with an office, service shop, parts, warehouse, and future solar panel installation business. This is on 200th Street Northwest in Big Lake Township. It's on 57 acres in the Industrial Zoning District. Planning Commission recommended approval by consensus with the 12 conditions and the finding of fact in your packet.
All right, thanks, Lynn. Wishes of the board.
I would recommend that we approve this.
Commissioner Felber?
I'll second that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm really excited that Ziegler's coming out here. It's a really good company with a really great track record. And they specialize in the sales and maintenance of Minnesota-built Caterpillar equipment, so.
Thank you. So motion's been made by Commissioner Felber, seconded by Commissioner Gray. Any other questions or comments?
I just wanted to agree with that comment. When the original underground company went and sold, and then the people, they moved their complex, and now Ziegler has come in. I think it's going to be a great addition to that corner.
Any others?
And good jobs.
Yes, good jobs, good support. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried.
And the last item I have for you this evening is DIVOCSG 11. This is the fourth solar farm, I believe, on the John and Lynette Golly property, requesting an interim use permit for a 1 megawatt solar farm. This is up in Clear Lake Township on 41 acres in the agricultural district. Planning Commission recommended approval by consensus with the 19 conditions and the findings of fact listed in your packet.
Okay, thanks, Lynn, for that overview. And what is the wish of the board?
Madam Chair, I'll recommend that we approve that. I mean, they've got other solar farms on the property. Keeping solar farms grouped together like that is probably the best way to deal with them, and definitely it's within the relative zone that a lot of the bigger ones are going into, so it makes sense in that space.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Felber. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Gray. Other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, Mark. Have a good night. Moving on to agenda item number 6.6, Mr. Dave Lucas. Consider approval of the host fee rates for Elk River landfill.
Evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Yes. In front of you is a request for board action to consider host fee rates for Elk River landfill for the remaining term of the current host fee agreement that would start 2024 and run through 2030. As provided, it provides for fees on mixed municipal solid waste, construction and demolition debris, industrial solid waste, and processing residuals. As you recall, at your June 20th regular board meeting, there was an amendment to the host fee agreement to allow for additional time for staff to meet with Elk River Landfill. Bruce and I did. We met with Mike and went over the fees. There was discussion on use of fees and the rates that we're proposing. And we informed Mike that we would be bringing those same recommendations to the board tonight. So, Keisha, if you want to scroll down further. Here you can see with the host fee agreements began in 2014. Started out with these rates right here and slowly ramped up. And then from 2024 through 2030, that's what our recommendation is. And as stated in the RBA, these rates we feel would keep our county more in line with current landfills that are of the same size. So that is our recommendation tonight. Any questions?
Thanks, Dave. Any questions? No? Okay, then what is the wish of the board?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the rates as presented.
Motion made by Commissioner Danielowski to approve the host fee rates for Elk River Landfill for the remaining term of the host fee agreement from 2024 to 2030.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Halls. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I want to thank Mr. Mike Miller for being here tonight with Waste Management. Thanks for joining us. Seeing that there's no other questions or comments, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion has carried.
Right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dave. Moving on to agenda item number 6.7, receive, review, and accept the Auditor Treasurer's Monthly Report. Ms. Diane Arnold will join us for this.
Good evening again, Madam Chairman, Commissioners. Before you is my monthly report for the month of June. Excuse me, the June trial balance was prepared by our accounting manager, Sherburne, and the 3-page investment report that's included in this document is prepared by my finance officer, Lorraine Rupp. So investment are above budget by $770,000 at the end of June, and interest earnings for the year to date totaled $1,327,000 compared to $634,000 last year. So we're ahead by $693,000. That's from the previous year number. So the general fund balance, which is on page 2, does not include period 1 tax settlement. That will be posted in July here, well, in this month, in approximately $18,247,000. So the general fund shows that it's behind last year's balance by $6 million, and this does include the ARPA funds of the $508 million, or 900, yeah, and the recorder's compliance, excuse me, of the $364,000. So so on page 2 is the budget to actual, shows you from June 2023 to June 2022, just gives you a comparison of the funds that we have in the individual fund balances. And then the next report is the cash balance that we've got. Next one, thank you. And this one here shows you from year to date, from June of 2023 to June of 2022, our increase or decreases in our collections, our disbursements, and our interest that's been received. And also down below is a year average interest rate through June on our treasuries and our notes and bonds and stuff that we have investments. The next page of this report shows you a little bit more, and this is how everything is broken out and by investment type. And it also does a comparison between 2022 and 2023 with graphs on the bottom there, giving you a little bit more of a visual as to where our funds for the county are invested. And on page 5, this is the location in which those investments are residing. That's just for your information. Then on page 6, we're going to, this is our executive functional budget to actual review, and this is as a modified accrual. And again, if you're looking down on the property taxes on the one that says 400 down there, we're showing that we don't have as of yet posted is the funds, like I mentioned before, is the tax settlement. That'll be posted here in July. So that number will be changing. And that's all by the function. And the next page on there, which is the last page on this report, this gives you what our settlement distribution is for period 1 settlement. Now it's from taxes collected January 1st through May 17th of 2023. And that's all the individual locations and funds that the taxes were being distributed to, along with the school districts and the cities and townships that they were going to be receiving their tax settlements, which they've already received. So I just wanted to provide you, that was a journal entry that when we settled out all the taxes for period 1. Does anyone have any questions? It's a lot of information, I know, each month.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Any questions about the report or other information people need?
No, from an expenditure standpoint, looks like we're well on track halfway through the year. We're right where we need to be, so.
Yes, we are.
And I appreciate, once again, the executive summary page does a nice job of laying this out, so I appreciate that effort.
You're welcome.
So this is an action item, so I would be open to a motion to accept the June 2023 financial report.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Danielewski,
I will second that.
seconded by Commissioner Felber. Any other questions or comments? I just would like to please extend our thank you to Lorraine and Sherburne
Yes, I will.
for helping put the reports together.
Yep,
I
thank
know
you very
that's
much, yeah.
a significant amount of work, so we appreciate their work on that. So, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Have a good night, or you'll probably be staying with us. You're here. So, Mr. Dan Weber.
Good evening, Commissioners. This week we have several ARPA projects to discuss. The first 3 are under the $50,000 threshold, so we would discuss those together. The first is a security upgrade in the CGIS software, and our IT director is here to talk a little bit about that project.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Brian Kamen will join us.
Thank you, Board, for your time. So the CGIS area of our network is our Criminal Justice Information System. So that's what that abbreviation stands for. And the security requirements for that are higher due to the nature of law enforcement and our attorney business and things of that nature. Utilizing this upgrade for our system will enable us to do better security on those facsimile transformations that part of the business does. And this is a 3-year contract, which is about a $3,500 recurring cost is what we'd be looking at year 4 if we continue this product going out. So the larger cost is for that first year implementation. So
So there are some tails to this with a
Correct.
cost in that 4th year and going forward, but
Yes.
3,500?
Yep.
Okay. So just keep that in mind, Board. Why don't we take these separately? Okay. So the wishes of the board with the CGIS right fax security upgrade, $28,424.06.
I would make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Halls moves. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Felber. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion has carried.
The second project is for some digital cameras in the assessor's office. Several of our senior appraisers have cameras that have far outlived their useful life, so they're looking for an upgrade of $1,600 to be a one-time cost.
Okay, a one-time cost of $1,600, property appraiser digital cameras.
I would move that we approve that.
Commissioner Felber moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Danielowski. Any questions or more information needed on this? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. And the next item?
The third project is for administrative pandemic-related expenses. These are administrative costs to run the ARPA program here in the county, so they reimburse staff for their time.
Okay, this is a $9,304.68 expense, administrative pandemic-related expenses. It does qualify under the ARPA guidelines. So what is the wish of the board?
Move to approve.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Felber.
Great.
Gray.
Then I will second it.
Commissioner Felber seconds. Thank you. I get you all mixed up, especially when you dress alike.
Yeah, I know.
It's a uniform thing. We're
Yeah.
trying them out.
It's their uniform. So, any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, for the public, we have been together today since 10 a.m. So it's been a long day, and we were together yesterday from 10 a.m. till 4. So it's been a long couple, 2 days together, so we might be getting a little punchy. But you're doing great. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Moving on to the expenses over $50,000.
There are some healthcare assistance overtime costs, and Amanda couldn't be here tonight, so she gave me a little synopsis. During the pandemic, individuals were kept on healthcare assistance despite change in circumstance that would impact their eligibility. When the federal public health emergency ended in May, so did the waivers for healthcare assistance. Counties will have the next 12 months to determine eligibility for all enrollees, which is a highly manual process. Sherburne County healthcare enrollees went up 56% from 13,000 to 21,000. So they're looking for reimbursement of their overtime costs.
She also spoke a bit with us about this, and there is details about it in your packet. So this is a $50,000 expense, healthcare assistant overtime costs.
Madam Chair, I'll move that $50,000 for salary reimbursement to the budget.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Danielowski,
I'll second that.
seconded by Commissioner Felber. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion has carried.
Next up is a restroom in Grants Park project, and I'm going to turn it over to Gina Hugo to talk about that one.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Nice to see you again today.
Ms. Gina Hugo joining us.
Thank you.
See you.
So the Parks Department has before you an ARPA request for $150,000 to pay for half of a park amenity at Graham's Park, which would be a 2-unit vault restroom. This would be constructed in 2024 and supports the significant investment and improvements that are happening at Graham's Park this summer, including the larger picnic shelter accommodating 50 people and the large nature playscape, the new parking lot, and new entrance drive. It also implements the Park and Trails strategic plan short-term priority of adding a vault restroom to the park that receives the highest use numbers in the county, which if you recall in past presentations, the average visitor numbers for Graham's Park between 2019 and 2021 was 140,000 people in a single year. And this $150,000 ARPA request would be matched to meet the full funding requirements of the project with an anticipated $150,000 in the 2024 Parks base budget, which we talked about earlier today.
Okay, thanks, Gina. And Grams Park, for those of you that don't know, it's located in Zimmerman, up in my district. You're welcome to come and see it. It is a great park. It's got a great support to our community up there and for the surrounding areas.
And this will be an improvement from porta potties.
Mhm. It will. Well, so what is the wish of the board?
Move to approve.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Gray,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Danielowski. Any other questions or comments? This is an approved ARPA expense. There's a way that we're able to invest a bit in our parks without putting it on the levy. Yes, Administrator Messelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'm wondering if I could ask Gina a quick question.
Sure.
Gina, I don't see handicap accessibility signs on this particular unit. Do you know if the unit is handicap accessible?
Thank you. That's a great question. It is, and we can request the signage be added. And I will note that the manufacturer of these units didn't have a picture of the exact unit that we requested a quote on. He had the line drawings of it, but I requested a photo for tonight. So the unit we have a price on doesn't include the stone facade. It's just the straight cedar board and batten siding straight down to the ground. Yep, they're fully ADA accessible.
Okay, thanks. Other questions?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Halls?
I guess as a follow-up, I'd like to see a little detail on the construction costs on this.
Are you thinking you want to do it yourself, save some money?
Maybe.
Yeah, we'll get a copy of those, of the plans.
It is a very expensive bathroom.
Would you, so we do have a motion and a second. Would you like that before you approve?
Well, as a follow-up afterwards, I'd like to see the, I'd like to see the detail.
Yeah, and just for board information, should you approve the procurement, we do have to make sure that we use the bid process that's required both for ARPA funds and state funds, so there'll be a little more work. We'll have time to get you more details. This is really just a budget, appropriation, but the specific project just will have to be vetted.
So Madam Chair, so that I'm clear, this still has to go through the bid process then?
That's our understanding.
Okay, so. Okay.
It's a recommended for, once we line up the funding, then we'll have to go through the bid process. So if you want to bid, we'll work on it.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. We'll be getting more information on this. Any others? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Thanks,
Thank you,
Gina.
Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
And then, Madam Chair, based upon the board discussion today regarding budgeting, we would recommend that the next item for the improvements be tabled, and we'll bring that back at a future date.
So do we need action to table that piece? Mr. Syme? Okay, so we will be pulling the 150,000 Big Elk Lake Park tribal monitoring to be attended to at another meeting.
Correct. I just want to give a quick broadband update if we have time to.
Okay, great.
Indeed did recently announce their grant awards for the Border to Border project, and there was a project awarded in Clear Lake Township for 240 properties. So back in February, the board did commit to contributing to that project. The match would be $91,000. We are reaching out to Clear Lake Township to see if they'd like to partner on that, so I'm not looking for approval tonight. Just wanted to give you an update that that project was approved. And we also received a grant application from Livonia Township for $100,000 to contribute to a $633,000 project. Once again, not looking for approval. I did reach out to Livonia Township to participate, and I am looking at having a board workshop in August to talk about our broadband progress over the last 5 years. So this would fit into that discussion.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, now moving on to agenda item 6.9. This was at your places. Mr. Brian Kamen will join us again for an IT request.
Good evening, County Board and Madam Chair. IT is here this evening to request additional staffing. So we have a single senior engineer on our staff today. We're asking for a second senior engineer. Their primary focus will be the sheriff and CGIS areas of our network. Those are items that have grown quite a bit with our ARPA funding and need some facilitated support there. Also, they'll be, moving forward into the future with us. The funding from 2023 would come from a non-levy sheriff cost savings source.
Okay, so this is at your places. So they are looking for a motion to approve the hiring of a new network engineer position to start in 2023.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Danielowski,
I'll second that.
seconded by Commissioner Felber. Any questions or comments or more details needed?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Halls.
just based on the budget discussions and the workshops today, I think this is a necessary position, given the complexity of the network requirements with the sheriff's office and with outside threats. I think that this is a wise position to bring in.
I would agree. We did talk about this at length in our workshop today. Yep.
And this is for the balance of 23 and all of 24?
The request on there was for the balance of 23 would come from the sheriff, and then in 2024, what we had discussed would be a share of sheriff and levy funds.
Okay.
50-50 split.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. Okay, so we do have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion has carried. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Board, Madam Chair.
That brings us to item number 7. That of Commissioner Correspondence, Committee Reports, upcoming meetings, future agenda items. Basically, what have you been up to since June 21st?
Madam Chair, given the extent to which we have been together, I'm going to be brief. Main 3 things that we've covered is we attended the Energy Transition Summit up in Becker. That was a good use of time, as we had national resources that came in to talk about what's happening within the state and specifically within Sherburne County, as well as some of the restrictions that have been put on us by various legislation. So I thought that was a time well spent. Then, and associated with that, did a tour of the Monticello nuclear plant. Found that to be an excellent use of time. It's the 3rd nuclear plant I've toured, so I enjoyed that. And then, obviously, the majority of our time over the last several days has been on our budget workshops.
Diane?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Attended the SUP Coalition, which is Substance Use Prevention. And that's always time well spent as well, working with the school districts and our community health nurse and stuff to try to make sure that we're doing everything we can to try to deter substance abuse in our schools. The 22nd, I had a CMRP meeting, Central Mississippi River Planning meeting, which we are working towards fixing the roadblocks from 94 to Highway 10, looking to achieve a bridge crossing. And so we're making progress there. We're going into the Pell study process of that the state and the federal government requires if you're going to get any funding. And bridges are very expensive, so we need to get all the state and federal funding that we can. So we're following their processes and what it requires of us to make that work. So stay tuned. Bridges don't happen overnight, but we're working on it. And I always say I hope that I'm able to be on the bridge deck when it opens. So that's my goal. And the 23rd, attended the big Elk Lake barbecue on the big Elk Lake Park site with our tribal partners. That was just a very good working with, and I know that the other commissioners can speak to it as well. It was just a very nice time to be able to be there and talk with them about how we want to develop this land and also be cognizant of what it means to them and their ancestors that are buried there. On the 26th, my options board meeting. On the 27th, attended a potluck here at the Government Center to recognize diversity in our employees. And July 6th, attended the Mississippi River St. Cloud Watershed, One Plan meeting. We're progressing along with that, trying to make sure that what we develop to keep the waters of the Mississippi and all the waters that flow into it, all working together to keep those as clean as we can and everything that goes off from it and into it. Also attended a Family Resource Center meeting, working on trying to develop, possibly working with the school district and trying to develop a family and the county for a Family Resource Center, kind of like a one-stop shop for any needs that are out there. We have a lot of silos that are out there to help people with needs, but sometimes they don't communicate, so we're trying to get them somewhat under one roof. Also met with some board members from the Big Eagle Lake Association, and we'll be hearing from them later tonight during our workshop and in their efforts on forming a lid for their lake. The 12th, attended a subcommittee meeting of Central Mississippi River Partnership to go over the bylaws and such, and how we're going to look at becoming a 501c6, which allows us to start to bring in businesses that can help us along the lines of trying to accomplish the bridge crossing, kind of like the 94 corridor. So we're working on getting that together so we can bring in a lot of people that are affected by the traffic that we deal with. Also attended the Sherburne Soil and Water Workshop at the A&L Peterson Farm. Those are always interesting to get out there on site. And this was to explain some of the new technology in how they are watering their fields and using sensors in the ground and sensing as to what areas of the farm need to be watered, what doesn't. And so that is what is happening in some of those large sprinkling systems, I'll call them, but I know that's not what they're called. And then also this, as we referred to the last 2 days, the 17th and the 18th, in very intense budget workshops from 10 to 4 and 10 to 3:30. So as we said, we spent a lot of time together over these last 2 days. Also attended to some phone calls and met with different constituents, and that pretty much wraps it up for my time.
Madam Chair, I forgot one thing.
Commissioner
One of the reasons we did, just a quick announcement, or thank you, I guess. One of the reasons we did these evening meetings was so that folks could attend that normally can't attend. So I just wanted to say thank you for those that came out tonight to spend your evening with us and show that these evening meetings are valuable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I serve on the Great River Regional Library Board. That's a joint powers board between 6 counties, and I'm on a couple subcommittees for that board. I'm on the Fund Development Board. We've had a Fund Development Committee start in the last number of years so we can fundraise and hopefully offset the levy a little bit with that. So serve on the Fund Development Committee. It met. I met with the Big Elk Lake Park Land Development Committee with Gary and I met with that group as we continue to develop the Big Lake, Elk Lake Park. We have a lot of partners that come to the table for that committee, our tribal partners, our township from that area, cities, soil and water people, a number of staff people from the government center join us so we can be the best stewards of that property. I served on a panel, spoke on a panel for the League of Minnesota Cities up in Duluth, was invited to speak on board relations at the dais and board relations with our public. So it was very interesting. I learned things serving as a panel member. I didn't look at you.
I went like this.
I serve on the Association of Minnesota Counties Board. We had a business partners reception that I went to. We also had an Association of Minnesota Counties Board meeting. Was part of the nuclear plant tour. Even though it's a little bit across the river, we definitely, with our whole energy system in this area and all of that, we need to know what's going on over there. So that was a great tour. The other subcommittee I serve on with the library is the collection committee, with the more recent individuals coming to the board, questioning certain titles that are in our library collection. We are looking over our policies to make sure that we're addressing and looking at, we're serving our communities effectively with that. TRICAP is an organization that serves 3 counties. Mainly serves people living in situations that are people that live in poverty, does a lot of different services. It's kind of the safety net for many of our individuals, and I serve on their Joint Powers Board. I had a Finance Committee meeting. We also, our executive director has resigned to take a position with MinCap, so she'll be with the big state organization now. So we are just starting an executive director search. I chair that board. Executive director searches take a lot of hours, so I'll be working on that over the next number of months with TRICAP. Central Minnesota Jobs and Training. Every county is connected to a workforce center. You probably know this. Ours is the Central Minnesota Jobs and Training over in Monticello. That is a partnership between 11 counties. So 11 counties in this area are serviced by CMJTS. I serve on their Joint Powers Board. Also, I'm the vice president of that. I'm on their Community and Government Relations Committee. You get assigned to all different other things when you're on any of these things. So we are in charge of setting up a number of events throughout the year. One that we're doing this next year is on mental health support of our manufacturing companies, any of our businesses actually. And then we always host a legislative breakfast or lunch with our legislators so they can see how the state dollars are being utilized with workforce support. We support both businesses and individuals. And then the budget workshops for the last 2 days. So we're getting to the end of it here. Right.
Well, thank you all for coming. Let's see, I sat in on the National Association of County Central meeting, and they didn't have a lot there because we're going to the conference this week to the National Association of Counties. So we'll have a lot more news on that next month. Also went to the Central Mississippi Planning Committee meeting, and Rand's already covered that. I sat through the National Association of Counties IRS Direct Payment Guidance Seminar. The Inflation Reduction Act Payments Program does have some money for clean energy, but with where we're at in energy transition, we might be able to get some money out of that, which would be nice. I also went to the Big Lake Elk Regathering event, which one thing that I thought of after leaving there, and I've been doing a little research on finding some good ones that I have to get a hold of the county attorney's office and talk to them some, is that we probably need a cultural resource protection statute for, or ordinance for the county. I mean, that's the big thing out there, is that we do have our parks, the parks within Sherburne County have an awful lot of historical and prehistoric cultural resources within them. So we want to be able to make sure we protect those. What's the Energy Transmission Summit? And probably the biggest thing I got out of that personally is that I finally internalized the fact that we are going to have a lot of solar in the county, and there's only so much we can do about it. But we need to be cognizant of making sure that we are careful with the solar that we have control over in terms of where it goes. That's just something that we can look at down the line. Let's see here. The Sherburne County Executive Committee meeting, we're working primarily on getting better health insurance for employees, and at least keeping good health insurance for our employees in Sherburne County. That was the main thing we handled there. I attended the active shooter drill here that was held by the Sheriff's Department for this building. It was I've been involved in a few active shooter drills over the years, more than just a few. It was a very well run, it was well executed, and I'm glad that they do them here as professionally as they do. I enjoyed the tour of the nuclear plant. I would like to see more nuclear plants, but that's not something we have any control over. I sat in on the NACO, once again, North American National Association of Counties webinar on AI for government. I learned a lot about AI, more than I knew before. I still have some deep concerns about reliance on AI, but there could be some benefits in the long run. But that'll be really the IT people will have to figure out and bring that to us so we can understand it. I went to the Metro Emergency Services Board meeting. I'm on the board of that, and I'm also on the executive board of that organization. What we actually do is we take care of the emergency radio systems for 10-county area. You know, Hennepin, Dakota, Ramsey out here. We are working on, we're trying to get a study to figure out how much money is actually being spent in the area on 911. That's data we don't have. And one of the big things that came out of that is there's going to be a proposal at the NACO conference later this week to lobby for federal funds for transition to updated cellular phone compatible 911. It's a very, very deep need that we all have, but there's not a lot of federal or state funding out there for it yet. And that's where we really want to have that kind of a big ticket item funded by the feds or by the state. The Violent Offender Task Force, which I'm part of, finishing their joint powders agreement. Little Falls may join. They're doing great work on fighting violent crime and drug crime in the metro area. I am on also the Towards Zero Death thing, the overall fatalities, which is traffic fatality reduction group. I'm starting to get to little language issues here at the end of the day. Overall fatalities are down. Traffic fatalities are down. Motorcycle fatalities are still up. Speed, driving while impaired, and seat belts are still the major contributors to that. So it's always, everybody needs to be cognizant of those things. The NACO Public Safety meeting, we're getting ready to go to the conference for that. The main things we talked about is the things they're going to lobby for. What I was pleased to see is that they're going to be proposing to be active in the national lobby for additional federal support for law enforcement, both in terms of qualified immunity and mental health treatment for officers. And then I also did meet with the Eagle Lake group, who's here in our workshop later today about their lake association.
I think you hit them all. I did the
We'll
joint.
start with Gary next.
Yeah. I did the Joint Powers Board for Ditch 1A out with Mille Lacs County and Benton County. Big Elk Lake Park Tour, the Big Elk Lake Park Tribal and Community Gathering we talked about, the Energy Transmissions Summit that we did, the NACO Agricultural and Rural Affairs meetings, I attended that by Zoom. The Sherburne County Extension meeting, we had that here. I did a 4-hour facilities tour with Steve Becker, the Property Maintenance Director, deep in the weeds in regards to all these buildings. We were in Becker, Zimmerman, we went through them. It was a nooks and crannies tour. If you've ever been on one of those, he showed me a lot of places I didn't know existed in all of these buildings. The nuclear plant tour, the Palmer Township Board meeting, I went to that. Met with the Clear Lake Township and the City of Clear Lake Mayor on an orderly annexation issue that they had problems with. Soil and Water Conservation Board also went to the A&L Peterson tour, and they're called Center Pivot Irrigation Systems with variable rate technology and variable rate frequency drive systems. So there you go. And then we did the budget talks the last 2 days. So that.
Thanks. So I think this illustrates the life of a commissioner. We're pretty busy throughout our weeks, even in the summertime. Someone said, I thought you only have 2 meetings a month. I said, I wish. It's been mentioned that some of us will be at the National Association of Counties meeting starting this next Thursday. National Association of Counties works hard on our behalf on a federal level to help with legislation and lobbying out there, and we have influence on that. I serve on the NACO board, so we will be voting on what we want to send ahead as our policy initiatives on the federal level. So we will stay tuned. We'll let you know how all that goes. Anything else? Announcements or anything? Okay, then I am going to say that we are going to recess our regular meeting. I'm going to propose a 7 to 9 minute break. We are ahead of schedule. I've understood that the Big Eagle Lake people are here and ready to go whenever we are. So thank you for coming in early. And let's take about a 7 to 10 minute break, come back at 8:30. I can't read the clock from here.
25.
Or 8:25, come back, according to my cell phone.